Namaste. I'm Pushpa Aman Singh, founder of GuideStar India, a not for profit organization which is an information repository of more than 12,000 NGOs in the country. I am also a member of the Social Stock Exchange Advisory Committee constituted by SEBI. And it's my pleasure to be talking to you about a very important topic for our economy, the social stock exchange. We're going to be talking about the key constituents, NPOs, FPs, and the process of registration and listing. So, what are we going to cover in about the next 90 minutes to about 2 hours today? Is an introduction to the social stock exchange, what constitutes the exchange, and then we will go into the process. The process will talk about the entities, what are the differences in the processes for fundraising, and then most importantly, about the annual reporting requirements for various entities. So let's begin with introduction to the social stock exchange. One might wonder, is this a physical marketplace? Is it something different from the stock exchanges that we are aware of? So this is basically envisaged to be a separate segment of a recognized stock exchange. We all are aware of NSE and BSE. So this is going to be like another segment of it. And what you would see is that there is registration by social enterprises. We'll talk a little bit more about what are these social enterprises, but it chiefly has NPOs and FPEs who are going to list their securities on the exchanges as per provisions of SEBI. And so, in a sense, once you raise funds as a social enterprise, you raise funds through the securities that are listed on the social stock exchange. And SSE basically acts as a facilitator, bringing together a common platform for both the enterprises and the donors or investors. So let's talk about the emergence, the history, and how this came about. So our Honorable Finance Minister made an announcement in the budget speech of FY 2019-2020, talking about, creating an opportunity for electronic fundraising through a platform called the Social Stock Exchange under the regulatory ambit of SEBI. And the key features are, like we just referred a little bit earlier, is that it's an electronic fundraising platform, and both for-profits and not-for-profit enterprises would be there on it. It's a separate segment on NSE and BSE. It's a regulated platform that brings together the social organizations and the impact investors and donors. It facilitates funding and growth of the social enterprises, promotes transparency and performance oriented philanthropy. And one of the key things that the social stock exchange brings about is a mechanism to ensure robust standards of social impact and financial reporting. So having said so, let's look at exactly how this works. So we said entities identified as a social enterprise. Very key segmentation is the not-for-profit entities or not-for-profit organizations, NPOs, NGOs, whatever you may call, and for-profit social enterprises or businesses with a social purpose. And how does one understand whether you're eligible? We know that the country has over 3 million not-for-profit organizations. And there are lots of social enterprises also in the last decade or so. So let's try and see, how the eligibility gets established. There is a list of 17 activities that is put out in the SEBI notifications. We'll see which are these activities. They are pretty inclusive and very broad in nature. And basically, to establish the primacy of social intent, which kind of comes naturally to not-for-profit organizations. But when it comes to social businesses, because there is no definition of a social enterprise, the social stock exchange has kind of tried to create these boundaries and eligibility conditions which focus on the primacy of social intent. So there are three aspects. One is the 17 activities. The second is, the target segment that you serve, whether they are underprivileged, less privileged, underserved population segments or regions. Again, there is a greater detail about how this is determined. And lastly, at least 67% or two-thirds of the activities of the entity should qualify as those, eligible activities which are serving these target populations. Now, here is the fairly large list, the 17 activities. A very enabling one is that any other area identified by SEBI or the government from time to time. So you will see that this will be an evolving list. And most of the basic key thematic areas, whether it is covered by Schedule 7 of the Companies Act or the UN SDGs or the International Classification of Non-Profit Organizations, all of that is kind of very covered in a pretty decent way here. So starting with the core problems of hunger, poverty, malnutrition, and inequality, there's healthcare, education and employability, gender equality, environmental sustainability, art, culture and heritage, sports, incubation of social enterprises, which is kind of becoming more prominent now, strengthening the not-for-profit ecosystem, livelihoods, again, rural and the urban poor, looking at farm and non-farm sectors. And then we have the slum area development, affordable housing, sustainable and resilient cities, disaster management, which is kind of becoming, again, a very important theme for our country now, the promotion of financial inclusion, and then facilitating access to land and property, other assets for the disadvantaged communities, bridging the digital divide, welfare for migrants and displaced persons, and like I said, any other area, an emerging area that is identified as deserving and to be eligible by SEBI or Government of India. So pretty much almost all activities are kind of covered in this. And if you're in doubt, you can always check with the exchange whether your activity qualifies. Now, further, again, we talked about the primacy of social intent. So there were 3 legs to it. One was the 17 thematic areas. Now, the other important one is whether at least 2/3 of the activities of the organization are eligible. Now, there are again 3 ways, one of the 3. And the key point to note is this should be, an average of the last 3 years. So whether you take revenue, expenditure, or the customer base or your beneficiary constituent community, 2/3 of your work as an average of the last 3 years should fulfill at least one of these. So at least 67% of the immediately preceding 3-year average revenues should have come from providing the eligible activities to these members, or either the revenues or the expenditure or the customer base. Again, when in doubt, I would always say, check with the exchanges for your anything that is very peculiar or unique to your case. We do understand that organizations indulge in multiple activities. And so it's kind of not very easy always to track these numbers and check. It is something that you will have to ensure that you have systems in place to do this over time. Initially, it's going to be an exercise that will be really worthwhile, even if it is time consuming and resource intensive. Now, let's kind of see if we have understood this. What if an NPO, will it qualify for registration if 67% of its activities in the last 1 year were kind of from the eligible activities, but its immediately preceding 3-year average is below 67%. So if you've been paying attention, the answer is a clear no. The institution will be able to or will be eligible for registration only if the last 3-year average kind of meets the requirement. Now, moving forward, there are also some kind of disqualifiers or ineligibilities for registering or raising funds. Okay, what is registering and raising funds or registration and listing? We'll come to that later. But these kind of apply to all of them. So, social enterprise shall not be eligible to register or raise funds through the social stock exchange if, and then these are kind of pretty common to corporations and businesses that kind of list with the stock exchange. But for the not-for-profit enterprises, some of these things might appear to be new. So let's start with the last one. If the social enterprise or any of its promoters or key directors, trustees, if any of them have been debarred by MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the central government, your charity commissioner or other regulating authority, then it is pretty clear that you would not be eligible to participate in the social stock exchange. If you look at the others, these are all again about being debarred either as an entity or the individual. If you've been debarred from accessing the securities market, then definitely you will not be eligible to be this. And of course, if you're a willful defaulter or fraudulent borrower. And this is kind of the basic ineligibility criteria, and I'm sure most entities would not be coming under this. Now, there is also, as far as eligibility is concerned, There are certain types of entities that are kind of not eligible to participate. So who are these? Very clear corporate foundations which otherwise kind of have access to, resources. Then political and or religious organizations or activities. So the organization may be, a political or a religious one, but if it is into charitable activities, even so, it would not be eligible. Then there are professional and trade associations. We know of many industry associations. Even though they are doing charitable activities or alumni associations, they would not be eligible to participate on the SSC. And then infrastructure and housing finance companies are not eligible except, those providing affordable housing.